A move that gives the education minister more power over Ontario school boards. CP24's Beatrice Vaisman is live at Queen's Park, where Bill 33 passed just hours ago. Opponents erupting in protest.
BC police have arrested the suspect that they say took off his license plate after a fatal hit and run in Mississauga.
Youth mental health. It gets a boost with a multi-million-dollar donation to sick kids.
This is Live at 5.
Good evening. I'm Bakari Sapp.
And I'm Phil Perkins. You're watching Live at 5. Let's start in Queen's Park. The province's increased power over Ontario school boards is now official.
Yeah, the controversial Bill 33, it passed earlier today at Queen's Park. Let's go live to CP24's Beatrice Vaisman for the latest details and reaction. Beatrice, you've been on Queen's Park duty all day.
Certainly, Bakari, Phil, this is something that's been a very contentious issue. It's garnered a lot of conversation. There was even a protest outside of Queen's Park this afternoon with various education unions and education workers. As for the government, well, Education Minister Paul Calandra saying this is a piece of legislation that will give him the power to assume control and appoint a supervisor at a school board if one of two things happen: financial mismanagement in the government's view, or if there's an issue that's of public interest. And so here's a bit of what we heard from Minister Calandra right after this legislation was passed.
Referenced the Near North School Board a number of times. The authorities now, thankfully, with Bill 33, would allow me to step into a situation like we're seeing in Parry Sound, where students are in a half-demolished school. How is that better for students? When a board falls apart and the minister doesn't have the ability to step in and put it back on track. You tell me, the critics, I say very clearly to them, how is it good for students to be taught in a half-demolished high school because the board couldn't get its act together? Today is a very good day for students. It's a very good day for parents.
That's not how opposition leaders feel, though, nor our education union leaders feel. Either they feel as though that high school is half demolished because of underfunding, chronic underfunding in education by the Ford government. They feel as though it is undemocratic to remove a school board trustee who has been democratically elected by that community and replace them with a supervisor here in the city of Toronto who's been appointed by the Ford government to make decisions. We know earlier this year, the Ford government assumed control of 5 school boards: the Toronto District School Board, the Catholic School Board, and the Dufferin-Peel School Board among those 5. And ultimately, there's no blueprint as to what a school board has to do or not do to have a supervisor assume control of it, nor does the opposition say that there's a clear blueprint as to what needs to be rectified until it can be handed back over to the board and to those trustees. And so certainly a lot of criticism today. Here's some criticism from Laura Walton from the Ontario Federation of Labour.
There are ways to do this, but if you need to do this, why do you have to do such a power grab? These school board trustees are the community. Somebody in North Bay knows their school. How would anyone in Toronto know what North Bay needs? Or how would somebody in Toronto know what someone in Windsor needs? It is absolutely unrealistic. It is just an overreach again and again, and we're seeing this with this government. Anytime that they can take control, this is what they're doing. You know, Doug Ford told us when he got elected that he was going to protect us from Trump. Quite frankly, he's just emulating him.
And so these critics feel as though, hey, if you want to get rid of a school board trustee, wait till the next election and defeat them in that election to preserve democracy. This piece of legislation also clears the way for police officers to return to schools where these school resource officers are offered by the local police service. Calandra saying that's another win. Certainly this piece of legislation, it passed easily, 74-40, and it's going to become law, receiving royal assent tomorrow at 12:15. Back to you.
As Beatrice Vaisman outside Queen's Park. A lot of action there today. Thanks so much. Also an update into a story brought to you last couple of days now. An arrest has been made in a deadly hit and run in Mississauga.
46-year-old Romani Elariri is charged with failure to stop at the scene of an accident resulting in death. This is in connection with last Friday's collision. This was at Eglinton and Fallingbrook Drive. Police say they have also recovered the vehicle involved. Earlier this week, police released an image that they say it showed the driver involved removing their rear license plate following the collision.
It's not a good look for the accused. It shows an intent to to conceal their identity or at least make themselves harder to identify from police. So they're going to have some explaining to do for sure. That's outside of our realm of involvement, but we will gather all the evidence we can, including that damning footage of him, and present it in court. And well, we're pretty confident we've got a very good case here.
Well, the family have identified the victim as 56-year-old Santosh Kumar Patra. Small memorial is now at the scene of the collision. Patra's family says that he lived just a block away. He was on his way home from work when he was struck and killed.
Well, a 17-year-old has been arrested. This is in a shooting in downtown Hamilton. It claimed the life of a bystander.
CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan joins us live with more. Steve.
Yeah, Belinda Sarkodie was 26 years old at the time of her death, originally from Ghana. She was relatively new to Canada when she became the unintended homicide victim on July the 11th. As a result of her death, the Hamilton police conducted an extensive investigation, and today we heard that they now have a 17-year-old in custody being charged with a variety of criminal offenses. Now, the Youth Criminal Justice Act prohibits the police from identifying anybody who's been arrested and charged if they're between the ages of 12 and 17. So the police were limited in what they could share with us today, but we did get information with regards to this 17-year-old now in custody facing some very serious criminal charges. Now, we did hear from the police chief, and we spoke with the president of the Ghanaian Canadian Association of Ontario, and here's remarks from the two of them. Let's listen.
To think of July the 11th and arguably the busiest intersection of our city, at the intersection of James Street and King, steps away from an art crawl where thousands of people were gathering that afternoon to enjoy the great culture and the great things that we have in the beautiful city of Hamilton. And a young punk thinks it's okay and thinks they're entitled enough to show up on a scooter and take the life of a 26-year-old young girl, Belinda, from Ghana.
It has an impact on all of us, from the standpoint that, number one, this was a young lady who just went to work and was at a bus stop, just going home, and her life was cut short. The impact to the community, anyone who really would be at the bus stop will feel that, it could be me, or it could be someone else next time. So there was a sense of trepidation and shock when that happened. And as we've been saying, even apprehending, this perpetrator is not going to restore the life of Belinda.
Some very good police work, and as a result, a 17-year-old now faces 1 count of second-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. The gun, police are still looking for.
Okay, live in Hamilton, CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan. Steve, thank you. A teenager has been seriously injured. This is after being hit by a vehicle in Ajax.
Happened around 8 o'clock this morning at Harwood Avenue and Roslyn Road. Orange air ambulance landed in a field at a nearby elementary school. The 14-year-old boy was flown to a Toronto hospital. Also, a pedestrian has been rushed to hospital after they were hit by a vehicle in Mimico.
Yeah, emergency crews, they were called to the intersection of Royal York Road in Lakeshore. That was around 11 o'clock this morning. Paramedics say one person is being treated for serious injuries in hospital. They are expected to survive. And crews battled a fire this afternoon at an Etobicoke high-rise.
It happened around 12:30 at this building in Dundas West. You can see that just west of Islington. Toronto Fire telling CP24 the main body of the fire was quickly knocked down. No injuries have been reported. The cause of the fire still being looked at. It is 5:08. Feels like 2. We're watching live at 5.
Well, coming up, the debate over Duke of York Blvd in Mississauga and its association with the now former Prince Andrew. Those details are next.
Welcome back. Mississauga City Council has rejected a motion that called for the renaming of Duke of York Blvd because of its connection to former Prince Andrew.
Let's go live to CP24's Andrew Brennan. Andrew.
Well, Bakari, Phil, a bit of a debate at City Hall. Ultimately, the decision being made that the Duke of York Boulevard will stay, and some changes ultimately to any associations that the city may have had from when the now former Prince Andrew came to town in 1987, when this street was named, that there would be no singular using of Andrew's name or any connection to the city or this street. Now, whether or not this street was named after the Duke of York at the time when he came to town, he now no longer the Duke of York, or named after the title, ultimately for a councillor from Ward 2, Alvin Tedjo, who put forward this motion, it didn't matter. The connection between someone who has been accused of sex trafficking, accused of being a now former friend to a disgraced mogul, Jeffrey Epstein, who ultimately, even though died, is believed to have been responsible for a lot of trafficking of young girls and the using of them for sexual pleasure, that no matter what, ultimately there should be no Duke of York Boulevard in his mind here in the city of Mississauga, just because of the recent historical connection. For other councillors, like a councillor from Ward 7, Deepika Damala, who ultimately said that she would want the name to stay, it's because of the waste of money, she says, it would come with changing the names, not just for the city, but for her constituents who happen to live on Duke of York Boulevard.
I'm pretty disappointed. We did land in a place that is okay, but let's talk about how this started. I mean, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is not a good human being. And unfortunately, he was part of the royal family. He was here in 1987. He helped open this building. He commemorated it. We have a plaque dedicated to him, and we named the street in his honor. Now, I know there have been other Dukes of York in history over 700 years, but this is why we named it. We named it after him. And what he's done in terms of sex trafficking, human trafficking, violence against women, all of this is a terrible epidemic that we've declared here in the city of Mississauga, and we're trying to fight against it.
It's a waste of taxpayer dollars. It would cost up to $750,000. Second, I have about 1,400 residents and businesses who would be impacted. They'd have to change everything: driver's license, health card, their property title deeds, their insurance. There's about 20 different things that have to change. And finally, you know, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is no longer the Duke of York. So, you know, it made no sense to me to be renaming the street.
Now, we have heard from the Mayor, Carolyn Parrish, in the last couple of minutes getting a statement from her office saying the council today agreed that all other honors, including plaques or non-critical wayfinding signage associated with Andrew, former Duke of York, be immediately removed, and that staff will also be looking at other considerations to combat. As you heard Councillor Tedjo say, Bakari, Phil, sexual violence in Mississauga has been declared an epidemic in Mississauga, and how to look at further combating human trafficking and sexual violence here. I will send it back to you both.
Okay, live in Mississauga, CP24's Andrew Brennan. Our Prime Minister Mark Carney has arrived in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, Carney is the first Canadian Prime Minister to visit the UAE since 1983. His visit comes as Ottawa tries to drum up investment from sovereign wealth funds and the private sector to help diversify Canada's economy in response to the U.S. trade war. Carney is expected to meet with senior government and business leaders in the United Arab Emirates. CTV News political commentator Scott Reid says that he expects Carney will try to secure investments from the UAE for Canadian energy and infrastructure projects.
He's going to basically say, you've got lots of money. You want to put it into large-scale projects. You have not found those in Canada before. You will find them now. Let's shake hands and get that money to our shores. That's going to be the pitch, and I suspect he's going to find some receptive audiences there.
And after his trip to the UAE, Carney will then head to South Africa for the G20 Leaders Summit.
For the second time in less than a year, a sinkhole has opened. This is in the Church and Wellesley area.
Yikes. Police say the sinkhole, which is pretty big, just east of the intersection, was reported around 10 this morning. The sinkhole is around 8 feet long and is in the westbound lanes on Wellesley. There's no word on a possible cause. Water main break was the cause of the sinkhole in the intersection back in January. It is 5:15, feels like 2. You're watching Live at 5.
And conditions are calm right now, but winter weather, it is on the way. So coming up, a checklist for drivers before time runs out.
Welcome back. Sick Kids Hospital celebrating a multi-million-dollar donation that it says will help redefine youth mental health care.
CP24 Sija Liu joins us live with more. Sija, this is very important, game-changing.
That's right, Bakari and Phil, game-changing, transformative. That's what they are calling today's $35 million generous donation from the Waverly House Foundation, and it's all going towards advancing mental health supports for youth and children. And for more on today's donation and just how important the donation is, I'm joined by Dr. Kathleen Pager, senior scientist over at CHEO. And Dr. Pager, thanks so much for your time today. We just heard from some of the top scientists and doctors about today's $35 million donation. How much of a game changer is this for mental health research?
This is an incredible game changer because it isn't just dealing with mental health in children, which in and of itself is very, very important. This is for precision child and youth mental health, which is providing tailored care for kids based on their biology, their environment, and their lifestyle. So we're trying to learn about and treat, not in the old way, which is one size fits all, but tailored for every individual child. And this donation allows us to do the research and start helping to change and transform care to accomplish that.
What type of changes or programs are you able to run now because of this $35 million donation that you weren't able to before?
Well, number one, the connection between Sick Kids and CHEO is critical. We're different hospitals, different complementary hospitals, so it's allowing us to partner. That's one thing that's very important. The second kind of thing that it's allowing us to do is hire new scientists. It's allowing us to give out research grants so that we are getting innovative, cutting-edge research, and it is allowing us to develop the infrastructures at both hospitals that will support this new kind of care of precision child and youth mental health.
And that word, we heard so much today, precision, personalized. Why is that type of care so important when it comes to mental health?
It's important because precision child and youth mental health doesn't just treat the symptoms that the kid walks in with, which is what we currently do. That's all we've got. But now, with all the massive, amazing changes in science and technology, we can actually measure biological changes in the body we never could before. And we can measure lifestyle and environment and add those in all together with the symptoms to be able to say to a kid, here is your tailored treatment program.
A lot of different personalizations, and we heard some concerning statistics as well as just how many kids are coming into the hospital with mental health illnesses. Do you have any statistics or anything you can think of that can help us understand just how serious the mental health crisis is today?
Yes, well, between 20 to 30%, based on some earlier work that I've done with EHRs and myself and others, 20 to 30% of the kids coming into our hospitals, our pediatric hospitals, are coming for mental health problems, and we think that coupled with the information that is recently found with sick kids is showing that that's an underestimate. And in addition, it's important that everybody thinks that access is a major problem, access to care, and it is. But even once kids get into care, what we're now seeing is that as many as 50% of them don't respond to treatment guideline care, the one size fits all. So those are the kinds of things that we're trying to move the needle on.
Absolutely, and that $35 million will help a lot. Thanks so much, Dr. Pager. Appreciate you breaking this down for us. And Bakari, Phil, this $35 million donation from the Waverly House Foundation, as you heard, will make for some transformative changes between Sick Kids and CHEO. I'll send it back to you for now.
Okay, reporting live from Sick Kids, CP24, CJLU. Well, winter is just around the corner. Police reminding drivers, be prepared.
Yeah, we had that bit of a dose of winter a couple days ago. People definitely weren't ready. Snow set to accumulate in the next coming weeks, making driving around the city a lot more challenging. CAA and police are reminding drivers it's time to get ready for the cold and icy conditions. They recommend putting winter tires on your car and keeping your speed down.
These are big pieces of equipment, and they often run in echelon or in formation across all lanes of a highway. So you might have a single plow like this with a wing, or you might have a tow plow that clears a couple of lanes, or you'll have 3 or 4 of these trucks all clearing all lanes of the highway, and they're all in a stagger formation. So the snow from one plow gets thrown to the next lane, which gets thrown to the next lane, and so on and so on. And we often see cars trying to sneak in between these plows, and it's dangerous. If we get into a collision with one of them, it shuts down the entire plowing operations. The snow that's coming off these blades is incredibly powerful. It can damage your vehicle, and you just don't want to be in front of these trucks as the drivers are looking forward to see where they're going to be doing their plowing.
Well, police and CA also recommend having emergency supplies in your vehicle itself.
It's 5:23, 4 degrees. This is Live at 5.
Hey, check it out. Toronto Raptors, maybe one of the hottest teams in the NBA, back in action tonight as they look to keep their momentum going against the 76ers and Nick Nurse. We have a preview next.
And the surging Raptors are going to try and win their 5th straight game tonight as they visit the 76ers.
Ball fake, backing in, double comes in a crowd, finds a cutting Barrett, goes in and lays it up and through.
Raptors beat the Charlotte Hornets 110-108 on Monday. RJ Barrett scoring the winning basket with just under 20 seconds left. Brandon Ingram had a monster jam in that game. Scotty Barnes came up with massive blocks in 9 seconds to close out the victory. Raptors are 3rd in the Eastern Conference with a 9-5 record. Tip-off tonight at 7.
Well, media got a sneak peek at Hamilton's revamped entertainment venue. We're talking about the new TD Coliseum.
Yeah. Pretty sure it's called Cobb's Coliseum for you people out there, a certain vintage. It's been a number of venues before. First Ontario Centre, as I mentioned, Cobb's Coliseum. But months of hard work and $300 million in renovations later, it'll officially open Friday with Sir Paul McCartney. He's an up-and-coming musician. He's the inaugural performer there. The 19,000-seat venue will continue to be home to the NLL's Toronto Rock. But there's a ton of other events in the months ahead. Those associated with the new TD Coliseum cannot wait to open it up to the public.
$300 million. We're calling it a complete transformation of this venue. We didn't tear it down to the studs. Well, we did tear it down to the studs and essentially built a brand new venue from where we were before. So anybody coming into this arena that has done so the last 40 years is going to walk through the same gates, but they're going to see a completely different venue, from premium spaces to new concourses that never existed before, to different food and beverage options, to better sound and acoustics. And that's only front of house. I mean, artists have a completely different and more elevated experience back of house too.
And also, TD Coliseum will host Canada's marquee music event. We're talking about the Juno Awards, the details on that big night that's going to be released next week.
Now I wonder when they're going to ask for an NHL team. That'll be fun. It's 5:28, feels like 2. You're watching Live at 5.
Well, the province taking on more power when it comes to Ontario School Board. This as Bill 33 passes at Queen's Park. More on what this could mean for students, educators, and officials. That's coming up.
Peel police have arrested the suspect they say took off his license plate after a fatal hit and run in Mississauga.
A 17-year-old has been charged with second-degree murder after a fatal shooting of an innocent bystander in Hamilton.
And a move that gives the education minister more power over Ontario school boards. Queen's Park passes legislation, opponents erupting in protest.
This is Live at 5.
Good evening. I'm Phil Perkins.
I'm Bakari Savage. Welcome to Live at 5. An arrest has been made in a deadly hit and run in Mississauga.
A 46-year-old Romani El-Harari is charged with failure to stop at the scene of an accident resulting in death in connection with last Friday's collision at Eglinton and Fallingbrook Drive. Now, police say that they've also recovered the vehicle involved. Earlier this week, police released an image they say showed the driver involved removing their rear license plate after the crash.
We're not talking about a small fender bender here in a parking lot where you think you can get away with it, and I'm not condoning either. We totally understand that people get frightened or they're scared and they're worried about repercussions. What I've seen over the years is oftentimes collisions involving pedestrians are usually not even the fault of the driver or as much so the driver. And so it's perplexing to me to understand why people choose to to flee in those moments. At the very least, pick up the phone and dial 911. Who knows what could have happened? Maybe this person could have lived if at least help was called sooner. So I'll always say, try your best to remember the human side of this.
And family have identified the victim as 56-year-old Santosh Kumar Patra. A small memorial is now at the scene of the collision, and Patra's family says that he lived just 1 block away. He was on his way home from work. That's when he was hit and killed.
Well, a 17-year-old has been arrested in a shooting in downtown Hamilton that claimed the life of a bystander.
CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan joins us live from Hamilton with more. Steve.
Yeah, Belinda Sarkodie was 26 years old at the time of her death on July the 11th. She was the unintended victim of a homicide, originally from Ghana, relatively new to Canada, and she was out on July 11th celebrating the evening with some friends when she was shot and killed. As a result of this occurrence, Hamilton police began an extensive investigation, and today we heard that they now have a 17-year-old in custody. Now, the Youth Criminal Justice Act prohibits the police from providing any information that may lead to the identity of the person they have arrested and charged. So the police were limited today in their information, but we did get details as to what transpired and the arrest of this 17-year-old. So we did hear from the chief of police, and we also spoke to the president of the Ghanaian Canadian Association of Ontario, and here are the remarks from the two of them. Let's listen to both.
We also have to recognize and acknowledge that the trajectory of youth violence in this community is unacceptable. If the 12-year-olds and the 14-year-olds, and in this case the 17-year-old, feels it okay to bring out a gun in the afternoon amongst hundreds of people to settle a dispute or to try to be tougher than the next person, then we got a problem. So today we can celebrate some good news and an update that our community has been thirsty for.
All of them are, relieved. And I spoke with Richard yesterday about it, and and this morning he and I have been in contact. So they are relieved. The mother, the siblings, they are all relieved at this point. Now it's a process of the continuous, healing, and hopefully maybe they can have some sense of peace that at least perpetrator have been apprehended.
So as a result of some very good police work, a 17-year-old is now in custody, facing 1 count of second-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. So back to you guys.
Okay, reporting live in Hamilton, CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan. Well, the province's increased power over Ontario school boards, it's official.
Yeah, the controversial Bill 33 passed earlier today at Queen's Park. Let's go outside Queen's Park right now. Live to CP24's Beatrice Vaisman. Beatrice.
Phil Bakari, it is contentious. It is controversial. It had a small protest here outside of Queen's Park as a result of Bill 33 passing here in the House, passing by a landslide, 74-40. Why? Because the Ford government has a majority government. But what it does is it essentially gives powers to Education Minister Paul Calandra to assume power over a school board if he feels as though it is being mismanaged financially or if there's an issue that is part of broader public interest. And so here's a bit of what we heard from the minister once this legislation passed in the House earlier today.
When they have gone off the rails, I need to be able to step in sooner. Near North has been for 3 years. That school board has been a mess. You have trustees, a report that showed that trustees were actually going into the community and sowing dissent against decisions that the board had made because they didn't like a decision, that they were literally causing conflict, that they ignored accountability measures, they ignored everything, their fiduciary duty to the board. You have students who are being taught in a half-demolished high school.
Opposition leaders, though, and education union leaders say, hey, don't blame the trustees because that school is unfinished. Blame the Ford government because they're chronically underfunding school boards and education across the province, according to the opposition. What we also heard there in that clip is Minister Calandra saying when a school board goes off the rails. The problem is Bill 33 does not clearly define what off the rails actually means. There is no blueprint in black and white in this legislation that says what a school board has to do or not do to have it being taken over by the province. And supervisor who's appointed by the Ford government to take it over from school board trustees. Opposition leaders say this is anti-democratic, and it actually, goes against democracy. Why? Because these school board trustees are democratically elected by their communities. And so there are concerns. Well, why is someone who's appointed by the Ford government in Toronto making decisions, for example, for school boards in North Bay and Windsor? Here's the VP of the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario.
This is just a distraction. It's about trying to get to look over here and blame the trustees when really the trustees have been making decisions for the majority. They've been making decisions that have been the right decisions for education, but they've been making them in an underfunded system. And the government is trying to say, hang on, it's all the trustees' fault, as opposed to saying it's our fault because we're not properly funding the education system.
And of course, here on CP24, we've covered stories about some bad apples when it comes to trustees spending money flagrantly, many would say, for things like trips to Italy, expensive Italian pieces of art, a hotel room to watch the Blue Jays. But even these union leaders say, hey, let's not blame and paint all school board trustees with the same brush when you've got several bad apples. And the way to get rid of those bad apples, they say, is in the next election, getting them defeated, Bakari and Phil. And so certainly it is a contentious piece of legislation. The NDP says it will continue to fight it and see if it can get it repealed, but it really does become law tomorrow at 12:15 when this bill gets royal assent. Back to you.
All right, something to think about as we enter a new school year in the next couple months. All right, Beatrice Vaisman, thanks so much. Appreciate that. It is 5:38, feels like 2. You're watching Live at 5.
And coming up, the latest on a Canadian Olympian now accused of being an international drug kingpin. Plus, the GTA lawyer also linked to this investigation.
Welcome back to Live at 5. Mississauga City Council, well, they've rejected a motion that called for the renaming of Duke of York Boulevard because of its connection to former Prince Andrew.
And CP24's Andrew Brennan joins us live from Mississauga. Andrew, you've been working on the story.
Yeah, Bakari, Phil, basically what this is going to come down to is Duke of York Boulevard is here to stay, despite the potential connotations there could be to the now former Duke of York and now former Prince Andrew. That being said, the way the council's moving forward is because this will stay the same. They do want to ensure that those that are experiencing sexual violence are not undermined or felt like they're not being heard. And one of the recommendations instead of changing names is to ultimately have city staff look at how and what the city can do more to support those that are victims of sexual violence and human trafficking. And on the flip side, also ensure that in an area where it's an epidemic, as it was named here at City Council, they can address it as appropriately as possible. The councillor who brought this forward, though, is Ward 2 Councillor Alvin Tejo. He ultimately says that because of the connotation of the name to the person, no matter what, this should not stand. He's disappointed, but ultimately says that the middle ground is ultimately acceptable, if not ideal. And we'll also hear here from Councillor Deepika Damala, who does represent many people who live on Duke of York Boulevard, on why she said ultimately the cost here was too much to ultimately make it worthwhile.
It was named after him because he was the one that was here, right? He was the Duke of York. The only reason it's named after him, after the Duke of York title, is because he was physically here that day, right? So it's in recognition of that. Now, if we're splitting hairs, what we did today was recognize the fact that there were other Dukes of York, and now we're going to recognize them, and we're intentionally saying this no longer applies to him because he's lost the title, and so to reinforce that, he's also lost the privilege of saying that this street was named after him.
Right now, as we speak today, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is no longer associated with the title Duke of York. This title has been around for over 600 years. 13 different men have held it, and I suppose that down the road more people will hold it. So for now, it's just a title because it's no longer associated with this man.
Now, while this street doesn't bear the name Andrew Mountbatten Windsor or the like, ultimately, Bakari, Phil, there are plaques and other pieces of commemorations and the like that are around City Hall that will ultimately be removed. I'll send it back to you.
Okay, live in Mississauga, CP24's Andrew Brennan. Well, American authorities are increasing the reward for a former Canadian Olympic snowboarder who's accused of running a drug trafficking network.
The U.S. Justice Department says that $15 million is now being offered for information that leads to Ryan Wedding's arrest. That's up from $10 million. Wedding is alleged to be the head of a narcotics empire that transports cocaine across Colombia, Mexico, the U.S., and Canada. The decision to raise the reward comes after a new indictment was unsealed that accuses Wedding of ordering the murder of a key witness in the case against him.
He's currently on the FBI's, and has been, top 10 most wanted list. He controls one of the most prolific and violent drug trafficking organizations in this world. He is currently the largest distributor of cocaine in Canada.
You do not get to be a drug kingpin and evade the law. Make no mistake about it. Ryan Wedding is a modern-day iteration of Pablo Escobar. He's a modern-day iteration of El Chapo Guzman. This Justice Department and this FBI will work with our Canadian counterparts and the government officials across the world to bring him to justice.
RCMP Commissioner Mike Duhem says that several Canadians tied to Wedding's organization, they were taken into custody yesterday.
Yesterday, we engaged in an operation following information that we received and arrest 7 out of 8 Canadians. All of them are currently locked up, waiting the extradition process. So they'll have a fair process in front of a judge, and then our Department of Justice will communicate with the justice here, and then we'll go through the steps of the extradition. But the premise is everybody will be charged in the United States.
Among those in custody and wanted on charges in the U.S. is Wedding's lawyer, 62-year-old Deepak Balwant Paradkar of Thornhill. Now, he's accused of advising Wedding and his alleged second in command that the murder of a witness would result in the case collapsing and help them avoid extradition from Mexico on the criminal charges. The U.S. Department of Justice says it plans to extradite Paradkar and the other Canadians arrested.
Well, officials believe that Wedding is living in Mexico and is being protected by a powerful drug cartel.
Wow, it's 5:46, feels like 2. Watch Live at 5.
A new report's taking a closer look at how much it truly costs to be a tenant. We're going to break those numbers down next.
Welcome back. A new report finds that the incidentals that come with renting often add up to the equivalent of an extra month of rent per year.
The analysis from rentals.ca, it reveals when costs like parking, storage, internet, and insurance are factored in, many renters are effectively paying the equivalent of 13 or 14 months of rent each year. For more on this, we're joined live by Giacomo Lattis, Associate Director of Communications for rentals.ca. Okay, so, these are things that they say you have to budget for. You got to budget for the insurance. You have to budget for cable. You have to budget for internet. How bad is Toronto?
Hey, good evening, guys. Thanks for having me on. And yes, I'd like to have some happier news, but it looks like that most Torontonians can expect to spend an extra month or 2 of rent when you factor in all these extra fees. So the average rent right now in Toronto is approaching that $2,600 a month, which is already, I feel, extremely high. But the average renter right now in Toronto pays almost $300 a month in these extra fees. And as you mentioned, that's parking, that's storage, that's renter insurance, that's the internet costs. So when someone is looking on rentals.ca for an apartment, and we encourage you to, when you see a $2,600 a month Toronto apartment, chances are you need to budget for that close to $3,000 a month when you factor in what it really costs to rent an apartment.
And so if that's the case, then, so is it still worth it to rent? Like, because, I see on my algorithm all the time, buying a house, getting a mortgage, because talk about incidentals there, having a house. Does it make more sense still to just the rent? Yeah, it's an extra $300, but it's, it's cheaper potentially than having a mortgage?
Yeah, that's a great question. And a lot of these new purposeful rentals right now, they really are offering a condo-style lifestyle where a lot of these new rentals, you have a free gym access. Some are offering bowling alleys. Some have cafes within their lobbies. So sometimes these purpose-built rentals are offering a lifestyle that may warrant these extra fees. So there is definitely some give and take when you're looking for a rental as opposed to buying a home. And don't forget, a lot of renters right now, they rent because they want this lifestyle, being able to pack up for a few weeks and go travel and know that their rental apartment is safe and sound. So a lot of it is lifestyle, but there's a lot that comes with these rental apartments now, which is quite exciting for renters.
Okay, so when we're talking about comparing apples to apples, oranges to oranges, we have to look at the actual cost of rent versus those incidentals. So how does Toronto compare with, let's say, Ottawa or Vancouver or Calgary?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Toronto's base rent is definitely higher, but it's surprising that the relative burden is lower than some of these other areas across the country. Halifax, for example, parking is about the same cost as Toronto, but storage fees are almost double. The average parking in Ottawa right now that our renters told us, it's about $183 a month for parking, where Toronto it's about $135. So even though Toronto rentals are higher just for the average rent, it's interesting to see that these additional costs are actually a lower ratio than some other areas across the country. So it's really a give or take here, but almost $200 a month to have a bargain space in Ottawa, that's quite burdensome.
And I got to ask about condo fees as well. How much of an issue is that? Because when I was living in a condo, we had no amenities. A cafe in a condo, never heard of that. Our condo fees were $500 a month. I know some people up to $1,200 a month.
Yeah, condo fees are another monster with all this. And what's interesting enough is because there's so many condos right now that are listed for rent on rentals.ca that were initially built to sell, a lot of these prices that I've talked about today are for condos that are now for rent. So those condo fees aren't necessarily there because they're switched to renters. But yes, condo fees are extremely high. They can range between that $500 to that ungodly $1,200 a month range. But those typically come with some of these amenities that we're talking about here, such as storage or internet or insurance, or even parking for that matter. So a lot of these rentals are actually condos right now in Toronto, but condo fees are covering many more amenities sometimes.
All right, the good and the bad when it comes to renting. Jacques Molatis, Associate Director of Communications for Rentals.ca. Thanks a lot.
Thank you both.
It's 5:53, 4 degrees. This is Live at 5.
After the break, a monumental multi-million-dollar investment in youth mental health. And we have more on what this means for patients here in Toronto and across the province. What are they going to do?
SickKids Hospital is celebrating a multi-million-dollar donation it says will help redefine youth mental health care.
CP24 CJ Liu joins us with more. What does this even mean?
Well, Phil Bakari, they're calling this a game-changing, transformative donations. They have 35 million reasons to celebrate. A $35 million donation from Waverly House Foundation, and it's going towards SickKids and CHEO to completely transform the way they do mental health research. And here to tell us more is Dr. Jennifer Crosby. She is the senior scientist here at SickKids Hospital. And Dr. Crosby, first off, amazing news to hear about this $35 million donation. How will this change things?
It's really an incredible donation. It will mean that we can really push the envelope, like do high-risk research that will hopefully yield high reward. It'll allow us to really push the envelope on the work that we're doing here. It'll take clinical care and research and let us work hand in hand in collaboration with CHEO and really come up with novel, innovative interventions and apply them in a very individualized way for children and youth who are struggling with mental health concerns.
And why is right now such a good moment to get a big donation like this?
Right now, medicine's really on the precipice of what we call precision health. And what that means is that we're really starting to look at individual factors for individuals. And this mental health donation means that we're going to put mental health at the forefront. Rather than trying to kind of catch up, it'll be really something we integrate thoughtfully right from the beginning to make sure we have maximal impact on youth mental health.
And we heard a lot of doctors say this will allow us to give personalized, precise care. For parents that are watching this, what do they need to know about how change might happen when it comes to their children?
Absolutely. So currently we often do sort of one size fits all, which can help for many people, but really not for everyone. This really helps us to look at individual factors like biology, genetics, environment, lifestyle, to really integrate them and personalize them for each individual child to come up with an intervention that's most effective for them, and also identify youth earlier, diagnose faster, and then treat them smarter so that we can have a better impact on mental health for a larger group of individuals.
That's amazing and definitely very interesting. Well, thanks so much, Doctor. We appreciate your insight on this. And again, this is a huge donation that they're celebrating, $35 million from from the Waverly House Foundation. But Kari, Phil, it's not every day they get a donation like this, and they're saying this will certainly be a game changer going forward. I'll send it back to you.
Okay, reporting live from Sick Kids, CP24's Sijalu. Right now it is 5:58, 4 degrees. This is Toronto's breaking news, CP24.
Thanks for watching. CTV News at 6 is next.